Comic book crossovers are always at least interesting, but there have been some crazy ones that will leave you asking, did that really just happen? What's up, my comic comrades? Crossovers take place across the comic spectrum, with everything from Avengers vs. Justice League to Batman vs. Predator. But sometimes you get a crossover that leaves you scratching your head and wondering what the hell just happened, both in a good way and occasionally in a not so good way. Well, today we're gonna take a look at some of the craziest crossovers to hit comics, and let me warn you, things are gonna get weird. Now let's get into it. We're gonna kick this off with quite possibly the weirdest crossover we're gonna mention today, and that is the Green Lantern Colonel Sanders crossover. That's right, this is a Green Lantern KFC Colonel Sanders crossover. Essentially what's going down is Colonel Sanders, the mascot and founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken, wants to let everyone in the universe enjoy his chicken sandwiches, aka zingers. So we asked Hal Jordan and the Green Lanterns for help transporting his chicken sandwiches to all beings in the galaxy. And for some reason, Hal Jordan's like, you've got it. Every member of the Green Lantern Corps is working on this, sir. Guy Gardner, John Stewart, Kyle Rayner, and Kilowog are probably my closest friends in the Corps. Those warp gates they're projecting will get your zingers out to hundreds of inhabited worlds while they're still piping hot. The problem is Larfleeze catches on to what they're doing, and being the Orange Lantern of Greed, or Avarice, steals all the sandwiches for himself, at which point Hal Jordan makes Colonel Sanders a temporary Green Lantern ring in the shape of a KFC chicken bucket, temporarily granting him the powers of a Green Lantern to fight Larfleeze and take his chicken sandwiches back. And yes, we do see Colonel Sanders create a chicken drumstick Green Lantern construct in the end. They obviously defeat Larfleeze, with Colonel Sanders saying he'll let Larfleeze open up his own KFC so he can have all the chicken sandwiches he wants. The issue ends with Hal and Colonel Sanders getting the chicken sandwiches back as the Green Lanterns eat them on Oa while cheering. Yes, this is easily one of the craziest comic crossovers of all time. I mean, Colonel Sanders teaming up with Green Lantern to deliver chicken sandwiches everywhere in the universe, then making Colonel Sanders a temporary Green Lantern with a chicken bucket Green Lantern ring? I don't know if this is the dumbest or best thing I've ever read. It's just crazy. And speaking of crazy things, you might have heard recently that aliens might just exist. Well, before you consider joining the Men in Black, you gotta check out today's sponsor, the Idle Survivors game. This is a super fun idle RPG for all ages set dead center in the middle of a doomsday alien plague. Now imagine a world where there's an outbreak of a mysterious plague, the world is infected with an unknown virus, and then we discover some not so friendly aliens bent on attacking Earth are responsible. So you know, it's time to save humanity. Unlike some games of the same type that might leave you stocking up on expired cans, Idle Survivors gives you a relaxed idle gameplay that frees up your hands. You'll dive deep into a world where you have awesome vehicles in 5 unique forms, 2 exclusive mecha skins, and a variety of heroes to collect and upgrade. But it's not all idle gameplay. There's deep strategy involved as you build your team with heroes from various styles and factions, making the unlimited strategy lineups and testing them in the PvP or PvE side plays. Experience minigames like Titan Invade, Sniper, and Numeric Storm that are seamlessly integrated, placing you right in the alien storyline. And guess what? Since its global release, it's been featured on both Google Play and the App Store in 130 plus regions. So download Idle Survivors Last Stand from the link below or scan the QR code and claim the 1,200 free summons for more force to retake our world. And hey, there's a bonus. Use gift code SLAYALIENS and variant to boost your start. Go idle, survive, and slay aliens, my friends. Okay, the next wild crossover we have on deck is when Batman found himself in a Looney Tunes caper in the Batman Elmer Fudd issue 1 crossover. Now this crossover is crazy, but I actually feel works. Now in this crossover, we get reimagined Looney Tune characters who live in Gotham. Essentially, we find out all Looney Tune characters have been reimagined into Gotham criminals, with Elmer Fudd being a hitman for hire. And in the beginning of the issue, we see him going after Bugs, this world's version of Bugs Bunny. Elmer Fudd is there because apparently Bugs killed his wife Silver St. Cloud, but Bugs says Bruce Wayne hired me to do it. At which point, Fudd goes after Bruce Wayne and makes his way into his mansion while Bruce is having a party and shoots him with his shotgun. But Bruce obviously didn't die. Batman then goes after Fudd saying, "What the hell, bro? Why did you shoot Bruce Wayne?" Also, he survived. Fudd says because he hired Bugs to kill Silver St. Cloud. Batman, being Bruce Wayne and having dated Silver St. Cloud, knows that's a lie and tells Fudd that. Fudd says, "I don't trust Batman, but I don't trust Bugs either. So we agree to put our differences to the side to find out the truth." It's at this point they go after Bugs to see who really killed Silver St. Cloud and end up having a bar fight with versions of Wild Coyote, Yosemite Sam, Sylvester the Cat, Tweety Bird, and so on. It's actually really fun to see Looney Tunes in realistic Gotham thug style. Point is, this is a crossover that shouldn't have worked, but it did. It was a really fun read The story is well written by Tom King, and again, seeing Looney Tune characters as realistic Gotham villains and thugs is something I never knew I wanted until I read this. Also, seeing Batman work together with Elmer Fudd is downright hilarious and was just awesome. Next up, we have the Mars Attacks Transformers one-shot crossover. You all remember the highly underappreciated Tim Burton Mars Attacks movie? Yeah, they crossed over with the Transformers. The issue starts off with the Autobots just having defeated the Decepticons. Optimus says you lose and then tells the General the Decepticons will no longer pose a threat. But at this point, the General is vaporized as UFOs appear overhead with Martians and Mars attacking. Mars and the Martians actually put up a good fight, putting the Autobots on the ropes, and then in the ensuing explosions, Megatron and the Decepticons are freed. Megatron then tries to make a deal with the Martians, saying, before you rightfully eviscerate us, might I make a humble request? Take me to your leader. The Martian says, a deal? Megatron replies yes, toward a mutually beneficial outcome. Ultimately, Megatron thinks he sided with the Martians, but they betray him, at which point the Autobots and Decepticons have to team up to defeat the Martians. But not before they temporarily shrunk Megatron, which Starscream finds hilarious. But with Mars defeated, Optimus and Megatron shake hands, with Optimus saying, you're just gonna go back to trying to kill us, aren't you? With Megatron saying, absolutely. So this is actually a pretty fun crossover, but one I never saw happening. I'm a big fan of the Mars Attacks Tim Burton film, and I'm a fan of Transformers. I just never saw these two franchises crossing over. Next up, we got an oldie but a goodie, and that's Godzilla vs. Barkley. As in Charles Barkley, the basketball player. This is a one-shot put out by Dark Horse Comics back in the early 90s. This is easily one of the most bizarre crossover comics ever. It might even be more strange than the Green Lantern Colonel Sanders crossover. Anyway, essentially what happens is Godzilla once again is rampaging, and for whatever reason, a little boy tells Charles Barkley, only you could stop Godzilla because you're Earth's greatest warrior. With Charles Barkley humbly replying, you may have a point there. What's your name, kid? Charles Barkley is like, yeah, I'm the Earth's greatest warrior. Because obviously, Charles Barkley is the Earth's greatest warrior. But it gets stranger. Barkley then finds a magical silver dollar that makes him grow to the size of Godzilla, because how else is he supposed to fight the king of monsters? Barkley, now the size of Godzilla, is like, you know how I'm gonna defeat this monster? I'm gonna challenge him to some one-on-one. Because it's a little known fact that Godzilla is a sucker for b-ball. At which point they find a massive basketball hoop, because of course they do. Where Barkley tells Godzilla, we'll play to 15, and just to show you I'm a nice guy, I'm gonna let you have the ball. The one-on-one basketball game starts as the whole city starts cheering a 15-story tall Barkley playing Godzilla in basketball. Again, this is one of the craziest crossovers ever. It's like, why the hell did we get this? Like, what's the reason? It's funny reading it, but for all the wrong reasons. Now, there was also a Charles Barkley Godzilla Nike commercial of the two playing basketball, which again, crazy, it was the 90s. And I guess the big takeaway here is that Charles Barkley is a kaiju? Next up, we have the time Spider-Man crossed over into the Ren and Stimpy Show comic book in the Ren and Stimpy Show issue 6. We see Ren and Stimpy are trying to eat America's favorite breakfast treat, powdered toast, but realize they are out, at which point a portal opens up right next to them with a voice saying, don't worry, leave everything to me, as we see Spider-Man appear saying, hey guys, Powdered Toast Man's been mind controlled by an evil genius. I'm just filling in. It happens. He then says, pay close attention, kids, as Uncle Spidey shows you another use for his patented web fluid, as he makes them Spider Toast. As you can imagine, this comic is just out there and crazy as the Ren and Stimpy Show, and this is the Ren and Stimpy Show comic book. Spider-Man would ultimately battle Powdered Toast Man, who's being mind-controlled, with Spidey winning. The issue then ends with Ren and Stimpy dressed as Punisher and Wolverine thanking Spider-Man for dropping by and boosting their sales. Yeah, this is a weird one, but it was fun, and since the Ren and Stimpy Show comic was published by Marvel, it made sense kind of that they would do an issue where Spider-Man makes an appearance. However, I will say I didn't really get into Ren and Stimpy, and that was my era of cartoons. Just for whatever reason, didn't gel with it. Here's a crossover I don't think many people have heard about, or at least talk about, and that is the Joker Mask crossover published by Dark Horse Comics in the early 2000s. It was a 4-issue miniseries. Now, this miniseries is actually dope because it shows us what would happen if the Joker came in possession and put on the mask. Many people know the mask because of the epic Jim Carrey movie, The Mask. But that movie was actually based off a comic book, a very rated R comic book, that is essentially about a man named Stanley Ipkiss who's been wronged by society, finds a mask one day, a magical mask that gives him powers, and uses it to go on a killing spree on everyone who's wronged him. Yeah, very different from the Jim Carrey movie. They toned that down a lot. In any case, in this crossover event, Joker finds the mask, and when one of his thugs puts it on, he finds out it gives the wearer incredible powers. When the thug takes it off, he shoots him and takes the mask for himself, putting it on to take on none other than his archenemy, the Batman. Now, this is a crazy concept because, again, if you know anything about the mask, he's one of, if not arguably, the top 3 most powerful characters in comics, or possibly even fiction. There's nothing this dude can't do. He's got the Toon Force, meaning he can do whatever the hell he wants wants, and now the Joker is wearing the mask, making him one of the most powerful characters in all of fiction. So you got one of the most sadistic minds in comics wearing a mask that gives you powers to do anything. Again, the Toon Force is no joke. It literally allows the characters to come out of the books they're in and slap the writers and its creators. It's a really fun story. We get the Joker wearing the mask running around Gotham with Harley Quinn, taking on the Dark Knight, and the sense of humor and things that happen are brilliant. Next up, we have a crossover we actually covered here on the channel a year ago, but it's such a good, crazy crossover I had to briefly mention it, and that is Ghostbusters TMNT. That's right, the Ghostbusters crossed over with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it was glorious. Essentially what happens is the Ninja Turtles are transported to an alternate New York City, a New York City where the Ghostbusters are. When everybody eventually cross paths, the Ghostbusters think the Turtles are demons from hell. But eventually the Ghostbusters just accept the Turtles have been transported here from a different New York City and work together to start busting ghosts. And start busting ghosts that the Turtles accidentally freed. It's a really fun read, and again, a story that I didn't know I wanted or needed. But again, we cover this whole series. You can find the links for that right here. Next up, we have all the different DC versus Predator comic books. That's right, the Predator or Predators have crossed over into the DC universe several times. Predator first came after Batman in Batman vs. Predator, where Batman's been hunted in Gotham City, so you have Earth's most dangerous human being being hunted by the galaxy's most ruthless hunter, giving us one of the most iconic crossovers of all time. I mean, Batman freaking defeats a Predator, at which point the Predator kills himself with his own sword, and then a commander of the Predators takes that sword out of the Predator and gives it to Bruce as a trophy. This is yet another crossover we did an episode on, which you could find on the channel right here. But there's also a Superman vs. Predator crossover where Superman comes into confrontation with the Predator. Hell, there's even a JLA vs. Predator comic book series where the Justice League faces a crap ton of Predators, and this one is really interesting because you get to see how each member of the Justice League would fare against a Predator. Truth be told, I didn't even know this crossover existed until last year, and it came out in 2001. It's just proof that you could be reading comic books for decades and still not know everything that's out there. We also have the epic Power Rangers TMNT crossover series that recently just got a sequel, and this is one of my favorite crossover events of all time. The TMNT Power Rangers comic book crossover, specifically the first one from 2019, is one of the most fun I've had reading a comic book in years. It's like reading a Saturday morning cartoon. I mean, we get to see the Ninja Turtles become Power Rangers, and the Power Rangers essentially become Ninja Turtles, and a Green Ranger Shredder, and a Ninja Turtle Megazord. Crazy stuff. Stuff you only wish they would do as a kid. I haven't read the sequel series yet, but I need to get on that because if it's anything like the first one, it'll be amazing. And the last crazy crossover we're gonna mention today is Robocop versus Terminator. This crossover makes a ton of sense, and it's actually one of the best crossovers ever, which is not shocking as it's written by Frank Miller and drawn by Walter Simonson. The pair brought two of the biggest sci-fi IPs together and made the two blend together perfectly. The story focuses on the year 2029, being dominated by machines, and can I just say, it could still be accurate. AI is getting pretty damn crazy, so maybe Frank Miller and Walter Simonson were onto something back in '92. In any case, a human rebel from 2029 is able to get access to Skynet's computer time displacement equipment, at which point she sends herself into the past to Detroit to kill Alex Murphy, aka Robocop. And now you may be asking, why is she going back in time to kill Robocop? What did he do? Well, when she confronts Robocop trying to unalive him, she tells him, "It was you. The whole world died because of you." You see, as the series goes on, we find out the technology that created Robocop is the technology that would be used to create Skynet, putting the world on the path for Skynet and the machines to take over. Pretty crazy, right? That we find out that in this crossover, the technology that was used for Robocop would eventually lead us to the machine takeover. Anyway, we find out that Skynet was aware of this rebel traveling back in time and sends several Terminators to the past as well to protect Robocop at any and all costs to ensure the machine's takeover. The story has a bunch of twists, turns, and ultimately leads to a crazy battle between an army of Robocops and Terminators. This is an old crossover, but still one of the best, especially if you're a fan of Terminator and Robocop. And let's be honest, if you're not, you gotta figure that out because they're awesome. But that wraps things up for this episode. These are just several of the craziest and coolest crossovers in comic book history. There are many more worth discussing, so be sure to let us know if you'd like to see a part 2 down in the comments. Either way, let us know what you think are the craziest, weirdest, or coolest comic crossovers down in the comments. And we'll see you next time when I talk about all things comics.